Welcome to Sirius's training series. This video will cover adding new part categories to your system. While I'll be focusing on our latest V3 dataset, the principles we're covering today can easily be applied to any version of our dataset, both V2 and V3. In our V3 dataset, we will be working with the digital prints product for today's example. Focusing on adding a new flat stock category. When opening up the pricing form or viewing the pricing form, you were previously in previous videos you were instructed to add materials through the material setup button. The exception being if you needed a new category identified here under material types. To add a new material type, we will be going and navigating to the back of the system called Part Setup to add that category. A brief review of how these two lists are connected to each other. Our material type list is a list of all our categories or kind of the parent category of these two material selection lists. So if I choose Coroplast in this first drop down, it will filter the second drop down to only show the parts available to that part category. So let's go take a look at part setup and how to add a new part category. If we exit our pricing form, we are going to navigate to our setup menu, and we're going to the pricing setup option, and then all pricing setup. Once in all pricing setup, we're going to look under major components, and we're going to jump down to the third option, part setup. Within part setup, in this particular video, we're focusing on adding material categories, so we're going to jump to the material option. Of course, we could add categories for other areas of the system as well. And we're going to focus on flat stock substrates. But you can see in the same area, you can update your roll stock substrates. If you are a small format customer, you can update your reprographic materials, and you can update your laminates, etc. back here, depending on what your needs are. In order to create our new category, we're going to add Gator foam to our list today. I'm going to highlight our flat stock substrate category here, and at the top of my list, I'm going to choose the option for new part subcategory. Our part subcategory is just a folder structure to hold our different parts. So you can name your category. And then on your right-hand toolbar, in your action toolbar, there's a save option to add that new category to your list. If you decided you wanted to rename this category at some point in the future, you can simply edit it, change that name, and then save again. Similar to how you add a new part from the front end where we emphasize cloning an existing part, we do that in the back end as well. We want to make sure that some of the preset variables transfer over with your newest part. So if you grab a part from one of your existing categories, in this case I'm going to grab this Coroplast 10 mil white part, and we are going to, on our right hand toolbar there is a clone button. We're going to hit clone, and then we are going to update this part accordingly. So we're going to call this Gator foam. Maybe it's a 3/16 board, maybe it's 48 by 96 inches or sheets, however you want to identify that option. I'm going to take the name and I'm going to copy it in the description, but if you remember from previous videos, your part name is more of your internal name. How do you know this part? How do your staff or your vendors know this part? And the part description gives you an opportunity to have an external name or a client-facing name available to show your customers. The other option I'm going to do at the moment is I'm going to change the category list. You can drop down the list and find your new category, or you can start typing it and it will go find that category for you. And so we're going to select that. That is the only changes we have to make from this side of the system. You can do all the original other editing of the part from the original part setup on the pricing form, such as updating your cost and updating your material dimensions. Of course, you could do that from here as well by clicking the cost tab and updating your cost per sheet, or clicking the material standard tab and giving it its initial height and width. In this case, we don't have to change it since we're adding a 48 by 96 sheet. And you can update if it's double-sided or what its cut rate is. But we're going to save this part and we're going to let it move down to our Gator Foam category. And I'm going to expand the category to show that it went into that particular list. So that is step one of adding your part categories. We've created the category and we've created the initial part for the list. However, in order to see it on our pricing form, we have to enter stage 2, which is updating our selection list or updating our drop downs from our pricing form. So still here within pricing setup, if you'll remember, we're in setup, pricing setup, all pricing setup. We're now moving to supporting components here on the left-hand side, and then the second option is selection list. In this example, we're still updating material, so we're going to expand our material category, and we're still updating a flat stock material, so we're going to update our flat stock material list. And what you'll see here is there's 2 types of list within flat stock materials. You'll have a list similar to acrylic or aluminum Coro here, which is called a dynamic link list. This is a list created directly to a category in part setup. So every time you add a part to that category, it's automatically added to this list. The second type of list that is housed in this category is an example of our flat stock material types list. And this is our parent list or our category list that we were seeing under the material type variable back on the pricing form. So the first column here was what you were seeing in that first drop down back on our pricing form. We're going to start by creating our dynamic link to our Gator Foam part. So similar to how we created our part, we're going to take Coro sheets or Coroplast sheets. We're going to use the clone option on the right hand toolbar, and we're going to create our dynamic link to our part. You're going to rename this part. I do find it better if you keep the name pretty consistent to whatever you named the category and part setup. So on a quick review, you can see what has been added and not added. The next option we need to do is we need to insert that part category. So next to our insert row option here, if we click our drop down, there's an option to add dynamic part category. Again, you can scroll through this list if you want to scroll through, or you can start typing and it will go find your available list. You can double click it to add to the option or to the list as I did, or you can highlight it and click OK. Since we cloned Coroplast, we'll see that the dynamic link for Coroplast still exists on this list. In this particular case, since we're creating a list just to see Gator Foam, we don't need to include this Coroplast dynamic link. So we will highlight that record. I know it doesn't look like we highlighted it, but as long as you clicked in it, I promise you did. And we're going to hit remove row, which will take those Coro parts out of this list, so we're just looking at our Gator Foam. That is all we need on there to create our dynamic link. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit save here on our right hand toolbar. It's going to ask us if we're okay with saving the blank line here. It is. It's just giving you an option to not have a category selected or not have a part selected. And now we're going to go back to our flat stock material type list or our parent list, and we're going to add an option for Gator Foam to that list. So if I edit this pricing or this selection list instead of cloning, I'm just going to hit the insert row button, which just gives me an opportunity to type in a category name, which I'm going to call Gator Foam. You can this is text, so if you have a preferred name that your staff knows these parts as, feel free to type in that part instead. And then in the second column is how we link to our dynamic link category, or the category we just created looking at our part setup. And we're going to click the 3 little buttons. It's going to give us an overlay that mimics our selection list form over here. And we'll take the same path, materials, flat stock materials. And then what we want is we want this Gator Foam sheets that we created. We're just going to highlight it. No need to expand it any further. We're going to click OK, and that creates the connection between our text and the list that's actually going to be doing the heavy lifting. The other thing to know about this list is you can rearrange how these categories are defined if you have categories that you use more often than other ones. So if with that row highlighted, so I have my cursor in that row, I can move up, I can move down, I can rearrange this so that it's in a logic or a form that makes most sense for my shop or my staff. Similarly, if I don't do any photopolymer or any engraving, if I don't need to see that category anymore, or maybe I've inactivated that category in part setup, but it's still showing on my list, I can highlight that row and hit remove row to remove that option from my dropdown. With our list rearranged the way we want it, I'm going to hit save on our right hand action toolbar. It's going to ask you the same question about the blank space, just giving you an option to not have anything selected. And if we go back to our pricing form, I'm going to clone the line item we already had open. Sometimes the list does need a refresh or a new line item in order to display our entries. And if I drop down my list, we will now see the category for Gator Foam. If I choose Gator Foam, we'll now see the part that we added to the list. And then, of course, I can work on this part under material setup now, so I can make any edits to this part that I want to make moving forward, or I can use it as a part to clone from to add any additional parts. That is how we would add a new material category. The steps that we've discussed are valid for both updating your roll stock and flat stock materials. However, if you are looking to update another list and you're not quite sure where or what form that list falls in under, feel free to join us on the startup webinar. And the login information can be found at the top of your training pages, or you can ask one of your consultant for additional information about how to find the master or the parent list to update your category. I hope you have found this video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Thank you and have a great day.